The window exploded inward before the sound arrived. March 12, 1934. Club Caliente, East Harlem, 10:47 p.m. Lucky Luciano was halfway through a sentence when the blast wave hit. He didn't hear the bomb first. Nobody hears a bomb first. What registers is pressure, a wall of force that makes your chest compress and your ears pop and your brain shut down for the half second it takes to understand you're still alive. Then comes the sound. Not an explosion. A roar. Deep. Physical. The kind of noise you feel in your bones. The table Lucky was sitting at, lifted off the floor. Not flipped. Lifted. Like a giant hand had reached underneath and shoved. His chair went backward. He went with it. Lucky hit the floor hard. Left shoulder first. His head bounced off wood. White spots filled his vision. Something in his wrist gave with a grinding sensation that made his stomach turn. The lights went out. Complete darkness. Lucky couldn't see, couldn't hear properly. The ringing in his ears was so loud it drowned out everything else. He could feel glass falling on him. Could feel dust settling. Could feel the specific wrong sensation of a building that had just taken structural damage. His training kicked in. The training from 20 years of surviving. Move. Don't think. Move. He rolled onto his side. His wrist screamed. He ignored it. Pushed himself to his knees. Blinked hard against the dust. Emergency lights flickered on after what felt like an hour but was probably 5 seconds. Dim red. Barely enough to see shapes. Meyer Lansky was on the floor 12 feet away. Blood running down the side of his face from a cut above his eye. But his eyes were open. He was moving. You hit. Lucky's voice sounded like it was coming from another room. The ringing made everything distant and wrong. Meyer touched his forehead, looked at his hand. Blood. He stared at it for a moment like he wasn't sure it was his. Glass. Meyer said. You. Wrist. Maybe ribs. Can you stand? Meyer pushed himself up using an overturned chair. Wobbled. Caught himself. Yeah. You. Lucky got to his feet. The room spun. He steadied himself against the wall. His wrist was already swelling. Broken. Definitely broken. The pain was extraordinary. He ignored it the way you ignore background noise after long enough. The front of the club was simply gone. Not damaged. Not destroyed in the way things are destroyed when they break. Gone. Where the entrance and the bar and the front windows used to be was now open space. Smoke. The glow of fire from somewhere outside. Car alarms screaming up and down the block. Someone in the back of the room was making a sound Lucky had heard before. High-pitched. Continuous. Not quite screaming. Not quite crying. The sound shock makes when it takes over, and you can't stop. Lucky got to his feet. His wrist was on fire. Broken, probably. He ignored it. Back door, he said. Now, Charlie. That wasn't the only bomb. They're coming. Back door. Now. To understand what happened that night, you need to understand what Lucky Luciano had become by March 1934. He was the most powerful organized crime figure in New York, possibly in America. After Masseria's death in 1931 and Maranzano's removal 6 months later, Lucky had built something new. The Commission. 5 families. Structure. Rules. Profit over territory. Business over blood. It had worked. For 2 years it worked brilliantly. Money flowed. Violence dropped. The families cooperated. But success makes enemies. Vincent Mad Dog Cole's remaining crew, small, desperate, angry about being shut out of the new structure, had been making noise for months, threatening, demanding a seat at tables they hadn't earned. Lucky had ignored them. Small-time criminals complaining about not being taken seriously weren't worth commission attention. That was his mistake. On March 10th, 2 days before the bomb, Mad Dog's lieutenant, a man named Thomas Trigger Burke, sent Lucky a message through an intermediary. "We want in, or Lucky's operation burns." Lucky's response, delivered through the same intermediary: "Tell Burke he should learn the difference between threats and suicide." Burke took that as a challenge. The back door of Club Caliente opened onto an alley. Narrow, dark, trash bins on both sides. Lucky went through first. Meyer right behind him. 2 of Lucky's men, Sal Moroni and Giuseppe Joe Shoes DiMarco, followed. The alley was empty. Lucky pressed against the brick wall, listened. The ringing in his ears made it hard to hear details, but he could make out sirens. Police, fire trucks, coming fast. "We can't be here when they arrive," Meyer said quietly. "I know, Charlie." Meyer's voice had that tone, the one that meant he was about to say something Lucky wouldn't like. That bomb was professional. Burke doesn't have access to professionals. He does now. Or someone bigger is using Burke as cover. Lucky looked at Meyer. "Who? Any family that doesn't like the commission, any boss who thinks you're taking too much, A car turned into the alley from the far end, headlights on, engine loud, not a police car, civilian, dark sedan, moving too fast for the narrow space. Run, Lucky said. They ran. The alley wasn't long, maybe 80 feet to the street. Lucky's wrist screamed with every step. He kept it pressed against his chest and moved. The car was faster. Halfway down the alley, Lucky knew they weren't going to make it to the street before the car reached them. The math was simple and unforgiving. He saw the fire escape, 15 feet up the side of the building to his left. Metal ladder pulled up, but not all the way. The bottom rung was maybe 10 feet off the ground. Ladder, he shouted. Sal Maroney reached it first, jumped, missed, jumped again, got his fingers around the bottom rung, pulled himself up enough that Giuseppe could boost him the rest of the way. The car was 30 feet back. Meyer went next, lighter, faster. Sal reached down, grabbed Meyer's hand, pulled him up. Lucky was last. The car was 20 feet back when he jumped. His good hand caught the rung. His broken wrist hit metal and white light exploded behind his eyes. He almost let go, almost fell. Sal grabbed his coat collar, pulled. Meyer grabbed his belt. The car passed directly underneath Lucky's dangling feet. He felt the heat of the engine, smelled oil and exhaust. They hauled him up. The car stopped at the end of the alley. Doors opened. Lucky didn't look back. He climbed, one-handed, every rung agony, up to the first platform, then the second, then the roof. But here's what Lucky understood in that moment. Lying flat on a tarred roof in East Harlem, with a broken wrist and his ears still ringing. This wasn't Mad Dog Collar's crew. Collar had been dead for 2 years. Burke was using the name for cover. Someone else had paid for that bomb. Someone with resources. Someone who wanted Lucky dead badly enough to blow up a club full of civilians. And whoever it was had made a critical mistake. They'd missed. Lucky pressed his back against the roof's low parapet wall. Looked at Meyer. Who knew I was at Caliente tonight? Meyer thought for a moment. Your driver. My driver. The club owner. Maybe 6 people at the club itself. The club owner's name. Vincent Abato. How long has he owned it? 4 months. Lucky closed his eyes. 4 months. Right after the commission started. Who sold it to him? Meyer's face changed. I'd have to check. Check. Sal Maroney spoke up from the far side of the roof. Boss, we need to move. Police are flooding the street. Lucky stood slowly. His wrist was swelling, getting worse. He'd need a doctor, but doctors came later. First he needed a name. They got off the roof through a building 2 doors down. An apartment building. Elderly residents coming out of their units to see what the explosion was. Lucky and his men walked through like they belonged there. Down the stairs, out the front door, into a waiting car that Giuseppe had called from a payphone. The car took them to Meyer's safe house in Brooklyn, a brownstone Meyer kept under a different name for exactly this kind of night. Lucky's wrist was set by a doctor Meyer trusted. No hospital, no records. The doctor gave Lucky something for the pain. Lucky refused until after the call. Meyer made the call at 2:17 a.m. The club owner, Vincent Abato, had bought Club Caliente from a holding company in November 1933. The holding company was registered to a lawyer named Marcus Rothstein. Rothstein worked for the Genovese family, Vito Genovese. Lucky sat very still when Meyer gave him the name. Genovese, Lucky said quietly. He's on the commission, Meyer said. He wouldn't. He would if he thought he could get away with it. Lucky picked up the phone with his good hand. Get me Albert Anastasia now. The meeting happened at 6 a.m. in the basement of a warehouse on the Brooklyn waterfront. Albert Anastasia arrived with 2 men. Vito Genovese arrived with 3. Lucky was already there, sitting at a metal table, his wrist in a cast, his face showing nothing. Charlie, Genovese said, smiled, friendly, concerned. I heard what happened. You okay? Sit down, Vito. Genovese's smile faded slightly. He sat. Lucky looked at him for a long moment. You tried to kill me, Lucky said, voice flat, empty. What? Charlie, that's Vincent Abato, Club Caliente. Your lawyer owns the building. The bomb was placed by someone who knew I'd be there, someone who had access to the schedule. Genovese's face went completely neutral. You're accusing me of. I'm not accusing. I'm stating facts. You wanted me gone. You thought if the commission lost me, you could step in, take control. Maybe with Bert taking the blame, nobody would look at you. Albert Anastasia leaned forward. His voice was soft, dangerous. Did you do it, Vito? Genovese looked at Albert, looked at Lucky. The math was simple. He could lie, he could deny, But the evidence was there, and Lucky Luciano didn't make accusations he couldn't prove. The commission needs stronger leadership, Genovese said quietly. You're making us soft, Charlie, making deals, sharing territory. That's not how this works. That's exactly how it works now, Lucky said. That's the rule. You agreed to the rule. I agreed before I understood what you were building. A table where everyone's equal? That's weakness. Someone has to be on top. Someone is on top, Albert said. That's why you just tried to kill him. Lucky held up his good hand, stopped Albert from continuing. Here's what happens now, Lucky said. You resign from the commission, you step back, you run your family and nothing else. You don't expand, you don't move, you stay in your lane. And if I don't, Lucky's voice didn't change. Then Albert handles you the way he handles problems, and we all know how that ends. Genovese looked at Albert's two men, at the basement they were in. He understood. Fine, Genovese said. I step back, starting now. Genovese stood, left without another word. After he was gone, Albert turned to Lucky. You should have let me kill him. Maybe, Lucky said. But if I kill everyone who makes a move against me, eventually I'm the only one left. And one man alone is exactly what we're trying to avoid. He'll try again. You know that. Then next time I'll let you handle it. But this time we show mercy, because that's what the commission does. We give chances, then we enforce. Vincent Abato, the club owner, disappeared on March 14th. His body was never found. Thomas Trigger Burke, Mad Dog Cole's lieutenant, was arrested by NYPD on March 16th on unrelated weapons charges. He died in the Tombs before his trial. Natural causes, the report said. Nobody asked questions. Club Caliente reopened 2 months later under new ownership. The front entrance was completely rebuilt. You couldn't tell there'd ever been a bomb. Lucky Luciano's wrist healed in 6 weeks. He never mentioned the bombing publicly. When asked by reporters how he'd broken his wrist, he said he'd slipped on ice. Nobody believed him. Everyone repeated the lie. Vito Genovese stayed quiet for 3 years. In 1937, he fled to Italy on murder charges. He wouldn't return to serious power until after Lucky was deported. By then, Lucky's mercy had run out. If this story showed you how close it gets, hit subscribe. We're uncovering the nights that almost changed everything. The bombs that missed, the decisions made with broken bones. Turn on notifications. Lucky Luciano survived more than anyone realizes. Drop a comment. Should Lucky have killed Genovese that morning in Brooklyn? Lucky Luciano, 1897, 1962. The man who survived the bomb. The boss who chose mercy once. The target who never missed twice. Rest in power.